So the question I would have would be, how do we reset this quasi-democratic, this stunted democratic process, and make sure that accountability is part and parcel of the process from day one?
Amr Moussa, were you part of a genuine democratic process you felt comfortable with?
Well, I agree with my compatriot about democracy and what we have to define it very well. It is not only the ballot box. It is the respect for human rights, for rights of women, the separation of powers, independence of judiciary, and so many other things. This meaning of democracy we have not yet achieved.
But did you feel part of a genuinely democratic process?
Well, the same answer. Yes, but not yet. To be able to say, yes, indeed, this is democracy. This is not yet democracy. This is the beginning of democracy. And that is why we do need to see good governance in order to support the process of democracy.
Ahmed Davutoglu, do you believe that there was a genuinely democratic process in a country like Egypt?
If we had this meeting 2 years ago in Davos, nobody would imagine that there would be an elected president in Cairo, in Tunisia, in Libya, in Yemen. So we have to be fair to these societies. In 2 years, they achieved a lot of things. The psychological threshold is over. Now, I fully agree, it is time institutionalize democracy.
Tom Friedman, what's your reflection, though, about the ability of the opposition to marshal itself against the Brotherhood in Egypt?
Well, I think, to our friend's point from Tahrir Square, I'd say two things. A democracy is only healthy. It's only as healthy as its opposition. A new democracy, a party like the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt or in Tunisia, it's only going to be healthy to the extent that it is checked by a free press and by a healthy opposition and the fear of rotation in power. That is essential to democracy. And we still don't have that in place yet. Partly because we've just had the election, but also I think one of the great disappointments to members of the opposition and to people from the outside who were rooting for this process has been the weakness of the opposition to come together in as united a front as the Muslim Brotherhood. Now, there are a lot of historical reasons for that as well, and I'm sympathetic with them, but I think a democracy will only be healthy to the extent that there is a really vibrant opposition with an independent judiciary and free press to express itself.
Amr Moussa, are you a vibrant opposition in Egypt or not?
When Ahmed was talking about a panel like this and a president elected in Egypt and in Tunisia, of course, and other Arab countries, I must underline the role of opposition and the role of demonstrations and the anger that is holding with the people in the Arab world that they or we want better, we want more. We have to move forward. We cannot look to the past without looking to the future. There are so many things that mean a lot for us. Democracy is what I'm talking about. It is not only the ballot box as the photos in the major newspapers do show.
Well, let me give you an idea of what some other comments are which are coming in from Momo Fanbole from Monrovia in Liberia. I strongly believe democracy is winning. Look at what's happening in the Arab world. Anton Norbert, who lives in Canada. If democracy means just voting, then it is winning. Which raises the question, what is the democracy we're trying to define, Tom Friedman?
Well, let me say one thing about the sustainability of this moment. I think here's what I think is not going away. The people have lost their fear. I don't think that's going away. And secondly, every leader in the world today is in a two-way conversation with his people, all right? Whether you're a business leader or a political leader. When I was in Tahrir Square as well for the revolution, and when I got home, people asked me, what did I see there? And I said, the way I describe it is that I feel like I saw a tiger that had been living in a 5x8 cage for 50 years get released. And there's three things I'll tell you about Tiger. One, Tiger is not going back in the cage. Two, do not try to ride Tiger. Tiger rides for Egypt, okay? If you try to ride him for your party, your faction, your sect, sooner or later, Tiger is going to buck you off and bite you. And the last thing is, Tiger only eats beef. Okay? Because Tiger has been fed every lie in the Arabic language, every bit of cat food, dog food you can possibly imagine. And any ruling party in Egypt or anywhere else who tries to ride Tiger for their own interests or feed it the kind of dog food it's been fed all these years I think we'll discover there's something really, really sustainable here. Tiger is not going back in the cage.
Foreign Minister Davutoglu. Given how assertive Turkish foreign policy has become in North Africa and across the region, do you have a clarity of what you believe democracy and pluralism is becoming in that area or not?
Yes, I think this, as I said, this is a historical process. The tiger will not go back. Let's give me an interesting example from my personal life. One day, my youngest daughter, 10 years old, 12 years old, came to my library in my house and saw my old typewriter. She was shocked. She said, "What is this, my father?" As if she discovered an archaeological discovery. And then I told. I wrote that my PhD thesis with that typewriter and Mubarak was in power. Then computer came, Mubarak was in power. Internet came, he was in power. Facebook came, he was in power, but he was not able to resist Twitters. So now it is over. Old regimes will not come back. And now...
You're sure of that?
Yes. Why? Because if there is one very secret term of Arab Spring, it is dignity. Abu Azizi burned himself because of dignity, not because of food or any other thing. Tahrir Square people, same, for dignity. Or in Libya. Now, and democracy is the best system to respond to the search for dignity of human beings. Therefore, democracy is important. How many years did it take to have institutional democracy in Balkans? Still, we have challenges in Balkans. Similarly, in the next 10 years, we will be having many challenges in the Arab world. But we should not be acting as Orientalists. We should not be thinking that can Arabs achieve democracy? I can say, confidently, yes, Arab societies, Muslim societies can have the same level of democratic system because now they are fighting for their dignity and they will do so forever.
I think we're getting a consensus here, and certainly some of those who are emailing and tweeting are suggesting exactly that. Yes, but not immediately. Let's broaden it beyond North Africa to Myanmar, if we can, to Yin Mon Han from Myanmar. You work as a mentor in Rangoon. Look at the extraordinary changes there have been in your country. Do you believe democracy is winning?
I do believe democracy is winning, and I wanted to ask the panelists, my country, Myanmar, experienced a democratic transition process the same year as the Arab Spring, but it was a very different process. It was quite gradual, and it has been quite gradual, and relatively peaceful, fingers crossed. But I wanted to ask you if there are certain universal factors that unite all of these diverse processes that will determine the success of democracy, and if so, who gets to decide if democracy has won? Is it the international community or citizens?
And to be clear, do you relate to what you saw in the Arab world 2 years ago, given what happened in your country almost 6 years ago? Is it the same process or something different?
I think it was the same process from a citizen level, but we were lucky enough that the government started to implement reforms before it got to a revolution phase.
I would say the tiger is still in the cage in Myanmar. The initiative, I think, was taken by people like Aung San Suu Kyi and the president to initiate reforms.
You're skeptical then, are you still?
Well, there's still a long way to go. So it wasn't a call by the people and the voices of youth. And this is why it's so encouraging. The voices of the youth in Cairo and Tunisia was heard by the rest of the world and taken up on the streets across major cities as well.
Foreign Minister, do you believe there is a systematic change to politics which can only be for the better or not?
Yes, there could be such a change, but the difference, I fully agree, between Arab Spring and Myanmar. I had a chance to visit Myanmar last summer during the problems in Rohingya region, and I had a chance to meet with President and son and everybody. There, the regional environment is also different, and ASEAN is playing a significant role, like EU played for Balkans. And that regional environment is encouraging the system to be changed. But in the Arab world, unfortunately, there is not such an attractive new regional atmosphere. That is the difference. But at the end of the day, there may be different experiences, but the sustainability of democracy will be achieved by the citizens, by the will of the people, not only by the support of international community.
Amma Musa, you once worked for President Mubarak Do you believe it's exactly what we've heard from the foreign minister?
Yes, I think so. I think of three things, 3 points. First, the tiger is not going back to the cage. And with Ahmed, that the previous regime or any previous regime in the Arab world is not coming back. And the third point is what was referred to by the Myanmar representative. You talked about graduality, gradual process, and peaceful process. We hope that our process will be peaceful, but it is a result of a revolution, not a gradual process. This is the difference between your case and our case. As for whether it would be violent, would go into violence, this depends on all the parties of the equation in Egypt and in the Arab world, because the Egyptian people will not accept to be duped into a system that brings back another kind of dictatorship.
Ken Roth, Executive Director of Human Rights Watch, your audit. A lot of optimism here, but what's your view?
Well, Nick, I'm surprised that we're this far into the debate and we haven't talked about Islam. And that, for many, is the biggest worry about the prospects for democracy in the region. We shouldn't be surprised that after dictatorship, when civil society and moderate parties were suppressed, that Islam does well. But the big question is, will, say, Egypt turn into Turkey, where you've got an Islamic ruling party, but Islam is not used to suppress people's rights, or will it turn into Iran? That's the big question. If you look at Egypt today, we don't really have the answer yet. The Constitution has some problems with it. It basically abdicated civilian oversight over the military. On the key questions for me of free expression, free religion, and women's rights, the Constitution basically kicks it down the road. It's qualified, and it's going to be interpreted over the coming years. I think the answer to those questions, whether those rights succeed, will have to tell us, will dictate whether democracy, and in the end, is victorious or not.
Foreign Minister Davutoglu, of course, Turkey is going through an enormous self-examination on this very issue as well.
Yes, but just one correction. We never claimed that our party was an Islamic party, because we think it is not right to call a party by a religion, because a party may do mistake or may do something wrong. And it is better not to identify. What we have been trying to achieve in Turkey is full respect to all human rights and all democratic values. And what we achieved in the last 10 years is that democratization in the sense of a balance between security and freedom, and a very dynamic program of economic development which produces services for the people. That's very important, otherwise democracy cannot be sustainable. And third, very active foreign policy based on our geography, which gives a self-confidence to the people.
Is Islam a threat to democracy? Do you see that, Navi Pillay, or not?
I don't see Islam or any other religion as a threat to democracy. One can be an adherent of Islamic faith or any other faith and still be a democrat. There has been a myth out there for a very long time that people in the Middle East, people in Myanmar, are somehow different and do not have the same aspirations for rights as do people in other parts of the world. And it's people who subscribe to that myth who locked up the tiger.
Musa, but that's a critical question which Ken Roth has raised. He says we should have raised it even earlier in this discussion, whether the Islamist tendencies are actually going to distort the advantages of democracy in a country like Egypt.
No, not at all. I agree with the judge, and I know your point of view, and it is a prevailing one. But it has nothing to do with the religion. Democracy is democracy. Islam or Christianity or Judaism or Buddhism, this is a different equation altogether. There is confusion. Until now, there is confusion. But it is very clear to us, the opposition in Egypt, that we shouldn't mix things or confuse things. Islam does not oppose, nor contradict, nor make it difficult for democracy to flourish. Democracy flourished in Turkey, for example, and it is a Muslim country. And it did the same in Egypt years back, decades back. And it was always, Egypt was always a Muslim nation. So please, this confusion, deliberate confusion of Islam and democracy, and conflict between Islam and democracy, is a wrong theory.
Ken Roth, it's confusing. It's a wrong confusion.
What Amr Musa is saying is what the opposition would like, which I actually agree with, is for us Islam not to somehow interfere with democracy. And that is one version of Islam which, frankly, the ruling party in Turkey represents. Another version, which we all fear, say a more Salafist version, would just